What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Baseball Insiders. I am Adam Weinrib alongside FanSided's MLB insider Robert Murray, and we told you we may not have an episode for you Monday. We'll see how the weekend shakes out pre-Thanksgiving. We'll see how the market's moving. Boom, Aaron Nola drops on Sunday afternoon. 170 to 175 million, try 172, pretty much at that exact midpoint. Interesting deal, wanted to return home to Philly, did it. Lance Lindbaum drops this morning. Doesn't have quite the same seismic effect on the market, but still, we figured we'd check in with everybody, reset the market, see where we're at, open Robert's notebook a little bit before the Thanksgiving holiday. And thank you, everyone, so much for joining us in the comment section. And thank you, Robert Murray, for making time today. How are you, my friend?
I'm great, man. I'm hoping the internet holds up this time. Fingers crossed. As I was telling everybody backstage, I'll even knock on my countertop here so I don't jinx it at all. But free agent market is finally active. We got some stuff to talk about. I know of at least another deal that might be done. It's small. So I know the player. I don't know the team. So that kind of makes it a little bit of a challenge to figure out. But we got plenty of different stuff to talk about. Adam Winder, how are you doing, good sir?
I am doing well. I was fine. A good weekend. Had a relaxing weekend upstate a little bit, ready for the holiday. That's exactly what I'm going to do again. Like I just had a weekend upstate, and now I'm going to do it again. But before we get to that relaxation point, we got plenty of baseball to reset. Everyone in the comment section trolling me, trying to get me to talk about the Red Sox. Here's the thing. I don't like the Boston Red Sox, but I'll talk about them. Red Sox fans refuse to entertain the idea of talking about any other baseball teams. Not me. I'll absolutely talk about them. We'll get to the bottom of your questions about our various teams we like, teams we hate by the end of the show. Thanks, everyone, for joining us. I think a lot of the commenters can attest. If you have not yet joined the Discord, there might not be a better time to join the Discord. Robert's been dropping some exclusive nuggets in that Discord. And some of you commenters, some of you joined us in that channel during the last show. Some of you joined us between shows. It's been especially active lately. So we appreciate everybody who's become a YouTube member and join that to continue the conversation while we are not on the air. If you haven't yet, it's probably a good time to do so. I think I am taking it easy on the Red Sox. I'm going to be kind. They need an ace this offseason, and they're going to get one. It's just a question of who. I'm sure we'll get to that at some point. But also, if you are joining us today, you want to know today's sponsors before we get going. It's Sleeper Daily Fantasy. Hello, Baseball Insiders listeners. We are partnering with Sleeper Daily Fantasy to give new users a first deposit match up to $100. Make sure to use our code FANSIDED2. That's FANSIDED and the number 2. It's on the screen when signing up to receive your deposit match. Please remember to always game responsibly. Scan that QR code on the screen to see if you qualify. And Robert, before we get into the land of theoretical, let's backtrack and talk Aaron Nola a little bit, because it did ultimately seem like the Braves went over 160 million. The Dodgers rumored to go to 165 million. So we've heard, but the Phillies come in with a number higher than both of those reported offers. And that seems to be the destination he preferred all along.
Yeah, Philadelphia is the place where he spent his entire career. And obviously he's very familiar with it. He's in a winning organization, history of winning, especially recently. And there's a roster that is so good that you basically know it's going to remain competitive for the next 4, 5, 6 seasons, especially with the star power of Bryce Harper and Trey Turner and plenty of others. And if there's one thing about Dave Dombrowski that has been obvious in every destination he's been, is if there is a frontline starting pitcher that he wants, he will go out and get it. We've seen him do it with David Price in different destinations. We've seen him do it in Philadelphia. Last year he was very aggressive getting Taijuan Walker. Obviously, first year there kind of didn't work out, but re-signing Aaron Nola was their number one priority. And as soon as that kind of realization, as soon as that, everybody started to realize that in the industry, that's when it became increasingly clear that Nola was going to return to Philly. But I will say, like, the interest from Atlanta was very, very real. And I wondered too if some of that aggressiveness with the Braves leaking, because with the Braves, stuff with them never leaks. I wondered if the Braves' name getting out in the Nola sweepstakes made Philadelphia bump their offer up even more to get a deal done now, because I think Philly ultimately was Nola's number one destination, but the money had to work, and obviously it did with 7 years for $172 million. It's a very, very good number.
I think ultimately the fact that it was his preference to go back all along changes the narrative of what I expected to be talking about in the wake of this. Like, I'm surprised to have not seen the Cardinals there. I'm surprised to have not seen the Red Sox there necessarily, but I have faith that the Red Sox are going to pull a big name, or at least they have to be taken seriously this offseason. The Cardinals, I have a little bit less faith that they're going to wind up with a big name, because they're the first ones to pivot post Nola, and they throw a whole bag of money at Lance Lynn, a familiar name who, if you told me he's going to St. Louis as their pitching coach, I'd be like, oh yeah, culture changer, good call. But he's still in the rotation making money, and in an offseason where you have to nail it, basically the Cardinals cannot blow a move. Their first move is guaranteeing a lot of money to a guy who I think he gave up 74 home runs last year. I might be a little off there, but I think the number's in the 70s.
Is that good?
Is that good? I mean, what we saw last year, was that good?
No, I'll tell you, like, because it was really interesting. Lance Lynn's season last year is obviously going into that year, he had been known as a durable, reliable starting pitcher. And then last year was, especially the first half in Chicago, was the first real sign of things starting to decline for him. And yet he was still one of the Dodgers' top targets at the trade deadline. Obviously, the Eduardo Rodriguez trade didn't work out, but Lynn was one of their top targets. They got him, and they thought that he could be meaningfully better than he was in Chicago, especially since he'd be in a winning environment, and he's known to pitch better in those kind of situations. And started off really well, and then it fizzled at the end. And it became pretty clear that he was not going to return to LA. And it is a risk for St. Louis, especially since he appears to be on the decline. But that being said, there is no such thing as a bad 1-year deal. If it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. I will be very curious to see how his pitching style works with Wilson Contreras behind the plate. I don't know. I feel like that could be a recipe for disaster, but the Cardinals have made it very clear from the get-go that, yes, their priority this winter was to upgrade their rotation, but they were not going to be able to add stars up and down that rotation. They were going to have to add some higher-end arms for sure, but also some number 3 or number 4 types, and I think that's what Lynn is here. And they got the deal done. They were aggressive, and it was funny. I heard at the GM meetings that Lynn preferred to sign sooner rather than later. I didn't know if that was true or not, hence why I did not say it on the Discord or even on the YouTube channel here. But obviously the Cardinals were aggressive and got a deal done. And there was a question in here that I wanted to answer because it was a good one. Mm-hmm. Where was it? Oh, yeah, from Scott F. here. Rob, will you be breaking the news on the small player signing in the Discord before anywhere else? Yes. I will tell you that right now. That is my incentive right now to join the Discord. I will put it in the Discord before I tweet it. That's my incentive for you guys to join. So Joanne could put the link of the Discord in the chat right here. She actually just did. Yep. Our lovely producer. So that is, I would highly recommend joining the Discord because I will do that for not just this signing, but I will do it for other signings as well. So there you go.
This will not be the last time that occurs for sure. And like you said, there is no bad 1-year deal. Of course, that is true, but you hope that the not bad 1-year deal does not prevent the Cardinals from, down the line, somewhere down the line going, I wish I had that extra $10 million for Blake Snell, but unfortunately committed it to our 5-starter. Like that, there's no bad 1-year deal in a vacuum, but if you refuse, the Red Sox committed a lot of money. The chat is talking about Corey Kluber for a reason. Like the Red Sox committed a lot of money to Corey Kluber earlier in the offseason. A bunch of people were swarming around being like, the Rays got him right. Like, that might actually be a bargain. Turned out his career was basically over, and that was money poorly spent. So even though it was 1 year, still did not help the 2023 Boston Red Sox compete for a championship. Now we've got one big domino down and one slightly smaller one, even though the smaller domino is larger in stature than the bigger one. Where are the winds necessarily blowing right now? Like, what's next? We saw some Bob Nightingale Dylan Cease smoke get going over the weekend. I saw the chat asking about him as well. So is it a big trade? Is it the Dodgers barking around trade targets, or are we close to maybe the dam breaking on a couple more pitcher signings?
It's a good question. There's a lot of smoke around the pitching market right now, and obviously there's plenty of different free agent options out there, especially with Yamamoto now being posted, and he is going to have a huge market. And it's going to be a pretty hefty contract that I am pretty sure will start with a 2 with the way things are trending there. And it's basically, you have him, you have a guy like Dylan Cease, who is already getting trade interest on the market. And Bob Nightingale of USA Today, he said that the Dodgers were in on Dylan Cease and having conversations about him. That is accurate. They have had conversations with the White Sox about Dylan Cease. To my knowledge, nothing is close, but those conversations have been had. I would not say that Dylan Cease's chances of being traded are 0. I think there is a shot it happens. I don't know the odds of it necessarily, but I would not rule that out. My guess right now is he probably has a slightly better chance of being traded than a Corbin Burnes type. But we'll have more clarity on that going into the winter meetings. But I would not rule out a Dylan Cease trade. And we even heard their GM Chris Getz say it on the record: anyone and everyone is available for trade. Eloy Jimenez is getting interest. I'm sure Luis Robert is getting interest as well. There's probably that entire roster is getting interest. And by the way, I want to say that Aaron Bummer trade with the Atlanta Braves,
yes,
that was a damn good trade. The fact that they were able to get 5 players in return for Aaron Bummer, I mean, that's the thing, is like he had a down year last year, but if you look at his FIP, if you look at his underlying numbers and his past performance, it looks like he looks like he's got a shot to be a really good reliever. I know there was plenty of other teams that were interested in him, dating back to the trade deadline, even now. Braves ultimately got him, gave up a haul, but it was all players in the 40-man roster that I don't think they were inclined to keep. And between Bummer and then now getting Ronaldo Lopez, that bullpen is looking very formidable in Atlanta for sure. And by the way, I want to clarify this. Like, I'm just saying that Luis Robert is going to get interest. I'm not saying he's going to get traded. Those are 2 completely different things. I want to make sure that does not get misconstrued. But he's a really good player, and players like that are going to get interest for sure.
Yeah, you would be silly not to ask, especially after Getz opened the door to anything and everything. That Bummer trade was just a wake-up call about how fast baseball moves. Like, I had sticker shock reading that. Like, oh my God, like Shoemake and Schuster, and I knew Soroka was hurt, but Soroka, it's just a throw-in, and Nicky Lopez, and then you really dive into it. A lot of these people took big steps back last year. The Braves had a clogged 40-man, and the Braves targeted Aaron Bummer. They liked what they got, so they the White Sox were willing to take. It may turn out to be pennies on the dollar, or it may turn out to be 3 former top prospects all in the same deal for a lefty reliever. So it could easily turn out as a bonus. Either way, shout out, while we've been talking, a lot of new members have joined the Discord and joined us as YouTube members. Travis is here. Morgan is here. VDSF Luis. I'm not sure if any of you are still in the chat, but shout out to you. If you'd like to join, again, Joanne put that link in there for you to follow the steps to become a member of the Discord. A lot of great questions. I know you want to open your notebook a little bit. I know you want to open the conversation on what went down on Friday. I guess let's talk about the non-tenders and the trades ahead of the non-tender deadline too. Did anything necessarily take you by surprise? I think a lot of the names who changed hands were people that you had previously mentioned. We were all in the will they or will they not on the Woodruff sweepstakes. Ultimately, the Brewers opted not to pay him a large sum of money in hopes that he could come back in August or September for whatever the 2024 Brewers turn out to be. But did anybody take you by surprise? And is anybody garnering interest in the wake of being non-tendered?
Yeah, I think the team that definitely stands out in the moves they made was the Milwaukee Brewers. And it starts with Brandon Woodruff, and it also goes with Rowdy Tellez. And I'll start with Woodruff here. Is he ended up wait, what are you talking about, Canyon Swartz? Who Pirates just signed a minor league deal? What's that?
who tell us
Yeah.
you have the opportunity to break it.
Yeah, you have the opportunity to break news here. But with Woodruff, like I said on the show on Thursday that I thought he was probably going to stay. And then Friday morning, it became increasingly clear to me in conversations that I was having with people around the league that he was probably going to get non-tendered. And that was going to be a decision that was really difficult for the Brewers. And I think it was going to be tough for them to get equal value in a trade. And I did not see a scenario in which he was going to be traded. And with Woodruff too, like they want to have a chance at keeping him. Like them non-tendering Woodruff was not the end of the road for him in Milwaukee. At least that's how they're viewing it internally. They want to keep a chance at re-signing him to a lesser, probably 2-year deal because he's going to be out for the 2024 season, most likely. But the interest in him is already like pretty widespread. I don't know the chances of him returning to Milwaukee, but with the interest that's being had, it might be tough for him to return to Milwaukee. Part of me thinks a team that makes a lot of sense for Woodruff is the Los Angeles Dodgers because they are the kings of signing these players that are going to be out for one season and then keeping them on the team or on the roster for the following season. They did that last year with JP Fireeyes, and they've done that with other players on the team as well. And I could see them doing it again. I wondered about possibly him going to Chicago and reuniting with Craig Counsell. Just my speculation on my own end there. But going and Rowdy Tellez too was not necessarily surprising because his contract was, considering his performance recently, was probably too much for the Brewers to stomach. So I could definitely see the writing on the wall with that. I think a team to watch for Tellez, probably the Pittsburgh Pirates. That's a team that is going to be looking for a first baseman, and I think there's going to be interest there. I don't know the likelihood of a deal, but I think there's going to be interest and probably conversations had this offseason.
Non-tender deadline always just reminds me how locked in baseball fans really are, how they can have a nuanced conversation about any number of names who are objectively like the 23rd men on a roster. Like we were having Austin Meadows, Luis Guillorme talk, Daniel Vogelback, Adam Simber. Like there's just any number of guys who like, look, you never know who's going to be the difference maker between, being a wild card roster, being a team that could advance in the playoffs. The Thunderous home run that breaks Game 6 could absolutely come off Daniel Vogelback's bat, or he could just disappear into the ether. You never know. But the non-tender deadline is just an annual reminder of how closely baseball fans follow their rosters like hawks. You guys know every little nuance of these things. And so, no, Woodruff is the all-star who changed hands on Friday. But of course, any number of these other moderately well-known names could end up having a big impact. And as far as I know, no one has signed or found a new team yet.
No, I don't think so either. Although, what are we talking as far as non-tenders go?
Just the guys who all change hands Friday. Although Jake Bauers goes to Milwaukee, that's a big one. But yeah,
I will say the player that I'm teasing that is probably going to sign here shortly, he was one of the non-tenders. I'll give you that. He was one of the non-tenders on Friday. So there is a little hint. I am under the impression it would be a major league contract. I still have not nailed the team. I've sent many texts and calls, and I have not gotten anything back. So that's kind of annoying, but we'll see how that one goes. But fingers crossed. But again, that will be a Discord exclusive before I tweet it. So just another reason to join the Discord, I guess.
More incentive, folks. Just a little bit more. Well, tons of questions popping in. Everyone wants to hear about their team. And before we get out of here, I know specifically from the Discord, we had some interest in talking about the latest in Cubs rumors. And there certainly are some Cubs-specific weekend chatter. Ohtani was linked to the Cubs by the local media over the weekend. I know Bruce Levine said he's hearing that the Dodgers and Cubs may be neck and neck for Ohtani. Then that tweet got deleted after it was aggregated. But either way, Chicago is in a lot of big markets this offseason. And so I'm wondering, especially because they got, Discord got the first crack at it, if you have heard anything on the way that the Cubs are positioned heading into Thanksgiving and the winter meetings.
Yeah, the Cubs, they have an opportunity to be really aggressive here. And they're probably going to end up having to replace the bat of Cody Bellinger in that lineup because I don't necessarily know if they're going to have I don't know what their chances are of retaining him, especially with, I mean, if you look at some of the teams that are going to be interested there, like the Giants, the Yankees, I mean, there's going to be plenty of competition. And what we do know is that the Giants have a lot of money to spend. They want a star, and they also have the Farhan Zaidi connection to Bellinger. And I don't know how much of a factor that's going to play, but I mean, familiarity never hurts for sure. And I think starting pitching is going to be high up on their radar as well. I could see them trying to add a pretty like highly rated starting pitcher. Although, like the Marcus Stroman thing is really interesting because that decision going like leading up to the deadline was really like nobody, like the Cubs didn't know what Stroman was, which way he was leaning, and it was they're gonna have to try to replace that production as well. I've heard they've met with plenty of different agents at the GM meetings looking for relief pitchers. So that could be something to watch here as well. I think the Ohtani rumors are absolutely real in Chicago. They have the money to go out and get him. They now have a manager who they clearly believe is the best in baseball with the contract that they just gave him. You don't hire a manager like Craig Counsell and give him that kind of money if you don't have intentions on winning and winning big and winning like immediately. They laid the foundation for that last year and even like before that with some of the trades they made for some of these top prospects and signing Dansby Swanson and some of these other guys as well. So I expect the Cubs to be plenty aggressive. I think Ohtani is a very real target. But that being said, the information on Shohei Ohtani is being guarded very, very, very carefully. There is not many leaks here whatsoever because teams are really worried. Like they don't want to leak information about Ohtani to the media just because Ohtani is very private and they don't, as like Jeff Passan said, they don't want like that getting out to impact their chances of signing him as a free agent. So it's just going to be a big mystery. It's going to be a lot of guessing. And I will tell you this, be very, very careful on the information that you believe and make sure you like follow like legitimate reporters because this is fake information season. And I've seen a lot of fake stuff being thrown out there already. So just beware.
This is fake information season, but not in the Baseball Insiders and not in the Discord. We've got you hooked up and we'll help you suss out what's real and what is sus. Look, I would be lying. There's no way to read our chat without knowing that a lot of our audience wants me to ask about the Red Sox. So I'm not going to tantalize them anymore and not do it. People are asking if the Red Sox preference is Jordan Montgomery. I think that's an interesting conclusion to draw and one that I've drawn myself in recent weeks. They have made no secret. If it was a secret before they hired Craig Breslow and Andrew Bailey, now it is the opposite of a secret that they will be in the high-level pitching market. I thought Nola made a lot of sense for them, but we learned that, hey, you can't – there's nothing you can do if he wants to go to Philly and Philly wants him back. So Montgomery, Yamamoto – Snell, which names are feeling the most familiar, the most possible, the most interesting for Boston fans?
It's a great question. Everything that I've gotten to learn about the Red Sox right now is that they're casting a wide net with their pitching search. And I don't know what their price range is going to be, though. That's the thing is like they've been pretty conservative in recent years. They've signed guys to short-term deals with around like a 10 to 15 million annual average value. I don't know if they'll go above that. I genuinely don't know. And like we've seen them connected to a lot of these top free agents, but I guess I'm in kind of a wait and see mode with how that ownership is operating just because of kind of how tight the books have been in recent years. So my honest answer is like I don't know, and I don't want to BS it, and that's kind of where we're at right now. There is a question though that I do want to answer. It's about the Detroit Tigers. I've seen him ask this a couple times from Blake here. There was a report today connecting them to Seth Lugo. I am under the impression that is unlikely. I think, like from what I gather, more than half the league is checked in on Seth Lugo, and that could end up being like a 3+ year deal when that's all said and done. So I think that is probably going to be unlikely for the Tigers. They are in on starting pitching for sure, but I just don't think Lugo is going to end up being their option. But I will say this. I think what they did with Michael Lorenzen last year and how they ended up getting him to be a meaningfully better pitcher than he had been with the Reds and even the Angels is going to end up being a pretty good thing in their pocket for these guys that are trying to get their value back in the open market. So I think that's going to end up being something that they can use as a chip in free agency for sure.
Lugo and Michael Wacha, it feels like, are becoming forgotten free agents in this market so far. So we will not forget them on the Baseball Insiders, we assure you. Another shout out to a lot of people who've joined the Discord during the show. Raymond, Scott F., Daniel, Craig, Tyler, 5 more. Thank you for joining us. You folks are the best. You're the reason we do this podcast. You're the reason we hopped on a Monday before Thanksgiving to make sure that we got everybody an update before the holiday break. I think a lot is probably going to happen between today and the next Monday's show. So we'll be here to recap it and answer more questions then. Shout out to obviously a burner who showed up. I know he's got a job and maybe he can't do the live streams every day, but maybe Thanksgiving week is a little different. Just want to do a couple more teams before we sign off. Let's do the Rays for obviously a burner because we have not done a Rays update in quite a while. And they sometimes play in the big pond in free agency. So any updates on what they're looking for?
Yeah, I think their first order of business here for sure is going to be in the Tyler Glasnow situation here. And from what I can gather, there is definitely interest in Glasnow. I think he is a very, very, very strong candidate to be traded. And I think you can look at a lot of different teams here that are going to be interested. Like I've talked about the Dodgers. I've talked about the Atlanta Braves possibly being a fit. I wondered possibly about the Cubs just because of their need for a starting pitcher for sure, but that's just me speculating more than anything. But I think getting Glasnow traded is going to be a very high priority for them. And at that point, they can go from there. But I think that's their first order of business in Tampa is trading him. And I think there is a 99.999% chance he is traded. I feel pretty confident about that.
Well, close second place behind the Red Sox info lurkers is people wanting to hear about the Mets. We're going to talk about the Mets, please. We got Yamamoto questions earlier, too. Is it true he is intrigued by the Yankees? Does he love the logo? It's all very complex, but where do the Mets fall into the offseason picture right now?
Yeah, the Mets, Yamamoto is definitely on their radar. I think that is the case for a lot of these different teams. I think Yamamoto is pretty high up on their radar, though. And if there's anyone that's got the money to sign Yamamoto, it'll definitely be Steve Cohen. And he can outbid the entire market. Although I think David Stearns is going to be more mindful in spending his money than the previous regime. And Stearns is very methodical with what he does. Although he's methodical, he definitely was methodical in Milwaukee because their payroll required it. But now he can be methodical in New York, but also aggressive. And maybe he ends up like spending a little bit more than he's comfortable with because you have Cohen. But he's not going to be irresponsible. And I think getting that rotation in a good spot is one of their top priorities this winter. I think upgrading just basically all parts of that roster is going to be an overhauling it because he's done a pretty good roster purge already in New York. It's not going to be just one or two things they prioritize. It's got to be that entire roster. And Stearns has his work cut out for him, but everything that I have heard from people with the Mets is he's very diligent. He's got his hands all over the place, and he's working. And so far, it's been a very good start to Stearns' tenure in New York. I feel very comfortable with that.
I do as well. Final 2 questions today. Angels fans want to know, is Mike Trout the player who you know is going somewhere else, but you don't have the destination yet? Is that the small trade you're waiting to break in the Discord?
No. Yeah, I saw that report this past weekend, and I don't see any scenario in which Mike Trout is traded by the Angels. I feel comfortable saying that because Artie Moreno does not want to be the guy. He did not want to be the guy who trades Shohei Ohtani. And I cannot imagine he'll want to trade Mike Trout in the same offseason he's going to end up losing Shohei Ohtani. That would be stunning. And let alone trading him to a team that signs Ohtani. Like that, I saw the report. That made no sense. I don't see a scenario in which Trout's traded, and I think that's going to be the last time we hear about that rumor. But that's a strong candidate for the craziest rumor of the offseason, and we got it out of the way early. So props to whoever reported that.
And then we will wrap. Well, I'll answer this question too. Comic things. The Yankees have 6 catchers on the 40-man. Could Trevino, Higgy, or Ben Rortvedt be gone? Higgy is definitely going to be gone. No doubt in my mind. I was surprised they tendered him a contract, but they did so they could trade him. And keep an eye out for the Marlins, where Peter Bendix today said, hey, we're looking for catching help. Well, the Yankees have 6 catchers, so you might enjoy some of the New York Yankees catching help. So I'm happy to answer that one. And M. Neal 115, are the Cardinals getting any top starters? We answered that a little bit earlier in the show. We certainly think they should be, and we don't think the one-year deal for Lynn will necessarily be a be-all, end-all other than it being poor optics. But watch the beginning of the show. We'll certainly talk about the Cardinals again next week for sure. Before we sign off, I'm going to give go for it.
I do want to mention one other name for the Cardinals to watch is Sonny Gray. That is a name to definitely watch in St. Louis. That is a player that they like.
Awesome. Well, there you go. Helped you out a little bit more than I even thought we would. Let's go Blue Jays info too before we sign off. Daniel's asked us a few times. Any update on what Toronto is looking for?
Yeah, they have been aggressive on both the trade and the free agent markets. And I think that is a team that if the right opportunity presents itself, I think they could definitely make a splash. And I don't know if it's going to look like Ohtani. I don't know if it's going to look like one of the top free agent starters. I don't know if it's going to be, but I don't know necessarily what it'll be, but I think they have the opportunity to be aggressive, and they should be a team that we do not forget about this winter. I think there's a shot that they make some noise, and I'm really curious to see what that noise looks like. But that's been the talk of some rival executives in recent days and weeks, is that the Blue Jays could end up being a team to watch here for sure.
Well, 1 week from today, we'll be right back here trying to make sense of what that noise looks like. I hope I didn't make you, if you started the show mad at me because you didn't think I'd ask about your team, I hope I satiated you. If I didn't, there's no better time to join the Discord and join the conversation between shows. I rattled off everybody. We just got Daniel Anderson too. Thanks for joining the Discord. A lot of people becoming YouTube members, joining us in the conversation in private to continue it between shows. But from now to next Monday, see us there. That's where we'll be during the holiday. We will certainly give you as many updates as we possibly can. Thanks to Sleeper again for sponsoring today's show. Sleeper Daily Fantasy. The code right on the screen. The QR code right on the screen. The code is FANSIDED2. Make sure to scan that and see if you're eligible. Robert Murray, are you going to get any time to relax on Thanksgiving? Or are you going to eat even one slice of pie without having to worry about somebody swiping a scoop, or no?
Yeah, thankfully I'm going to be with my girlfriend's family on Thanksgiving. I got my time to relax this weekend because I was actually sick this weekend. I did not have a voice. Basically my cold hit me during the show last week, and my voice was it was screwed after that. But we're back in shape. We're doing good. Life is good again. Being able to relax. I'll have more than one piece of pie for sure. There's a very strong chance that I think actually the betting sites have it at over 3.5 slices for me, and I'm slamming the over on that. So let's do it, baby. How about you, Adam? What are you doing?
I have a big potential acquisition on Wednesday night. I am the current favorite for pistachio cannolis at a local market in Jersey. I'm really trying pretty hard to acquire those. I'm quote unquote heavily in on those. So we'll see if we can close that, get the deal done. If I do, that will also be a Discord exclusive. I'll go right to the Discord and I'll tell you I am eating pistachio cannoli cream, and I plan to for the next 48 hours.
Well, hey, just make sure Passon doesn't scoop you on that. He's got good cannoli sources, apparently. So
Passon's everywhere. Yeah, Passon's at my local market. I feel like in the aisles between the biscuits, looking out and trying to swipe that for me. But that'll be a Discord exclusive for sure.
No, we love that. By the way, Passon, guy's freaking good. I'll give him credit. Like, obviously he's a competitor of mine, but he's also a buddy. He's a friend. And the amount of people that I hear that love him in the industry is not surprising at all. It's a lot. And it also feels like whenever I feel like I'm about to scoop him on something, he drops it from right on under me. That we're going to make sure that doesn't happen. This is the offseason of Bert. We're going to scoop. We're going we're going to make it happen. I got plenty of stuff in the hopper. Stay tuned to the Discord, by the way. I'll be dropping plenty of info in there. But no, Adam Weinrib, I appreciate you, good sir.
Robert, I appreciate you. Not a show without you. I just try to feed the information to the parties that requested it. Thanks for joining us today. Again, as always, another big show. Expecting a huge one next Monday, so no better time to get on board. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. Turn your notifications on there. Turn your notifications on Twitter for Robert. He'll let you know when news is breaking. Come subscribe on podcast platforms too if you prefer the audio. Apple, Google, Spotify, we're everywhere. We're going to take a break on the Thanksgiving holiday, of course, but baseball news never sleeps. So continue to follow Robert, hang out in the Discord, and we'll be right back here live next week, 3:30 Eastern time to recap a probably insane week in baseball news. And then we'll get right back on schedule with the podcast. For Robert Murray, I am Adam Weinrib. Thanks so much for hanging out with us, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you, everybody.